All right, girls. Happy Monday in January 24th. I'm so excited for Clarissa to share tonight because she always brings us the goods, right? She is gonna screen share something with us, but before I switch it over to her, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm planning on going live in the team page on Wednesday. I haven't nailed down the time yet. It'll either be in the morning, like around 8 a.m., or it'll be in the afternoon after I get the boys home from school, like around 3:30, somewhere around that time. But I do have some things that I learned over the weekend that I'm really excited to bring to the table to help all of us keep growing and learning. So I'm going to share that with all of you when I go live in the team page on Wednesday. So just mark it down in your calendar so that you make sure you check in Wednesday or Thursday morning so that way you can check what I talked about and you are up to speed on what's going on. I think that that's all that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and I'm going to switch the host to Clarissa. So give me just a second.
Oh, good. There it is. Cool. All right. Hi, guys. How we doing? So my talk tonight's going to be a little bit different because I'm just really going to share with you guys some of my experiences that I've had lately and how things just kind of intertwine and the fun synchronicities of things, right? So as you guys know, or some of you might know, or some of you don't know, I'm a spiritualist. So I was raised as a spiritualist. I go to a spiritualist church. And yesterday I had the awesome pleasure of speaking at my church. And it's been a long time since I spoke at church. It's been like over 10 years. But they had me listed as a first time speaker. And I was like, ooh, like I have a thing about correcting people. I don't always like to do that. I just like to let stuff kind of go. Right. But they were just talking me up about being this first time speaker. And I'm like, oh shit. Right. Like you guys. And so I got up there and I was like, you guys, I have to confess something. I'm not actually a first time speaker here. I've spoken before. It's been a long time. I said, but it's okay. Don't worry. I don't really remember what I talked about either. But I said, I've made a lot of changes to myself in the last few years. And from that perspective, it really is like could be a new speaker because I'm like a new person. And so when I had sat down to write out my speech, what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about perspective. And I was thinking about how when I go to church, I always sit in the same seat. I go in and you guys, I have been away from church for, like I said, over 10 years, right? It's been a long time. I just life, stuff. And after my mom passed away, I said, okay, I'm gonna tap back into this. And I went back and it was like I walked in and the seat was open and I sat in it. I didn't think about who sat there in the last 10. I just went in and I sat down, and that's like an unconscious habit for me. And I was talking about how like it's conditioning, it's programmed into me from when I was a kid. And I would go to church with my mom, and we would go in and she would just walk in, and of course I'd just sit right next to her. But I said it was a totally different perspective to stand up at the front of the church and look out. That was just like, wow, what a shift. And I said, the only other time that I sat somewhere different was when we had my mom's memorial service. I sat in the front row, like on the complete opposite side of the church. And I said, that was just a totally different perspective, like in all ways. Right. So, but when I started to think about it consciously, unconsciously, I'm doing this pattern in other areas of my life. So when I was in college and you'd walk into a class for the first day and you'd pick a seat, I would always pick a seat that was like maybe not in the very, very front, but second row, comfortable, third row. All right, I'll take it. But I prefer that second row. Meetings, totally. I would rather sit at the front of the room than sit at the back of the room. And I was really like kind of like trying to do a deep dive, like why am I like this? And why is it that when I find a place that's comfortable, I don't want to move? It's uncomfortable to move. So I thought about it, and it was what came to me was that it's just like a change in seats means a change in perspective. Change in perspective means that there's all sorts of new things to take in, right? You can see things from a different angle. You're probably hearing things from a different way. Maybe you're sitting next to the window now and there's, something delicious wafting in through the window and you get distracted, right? So it's just like, okay, you have all these things to take in and then you get distracted. And then when you get distracted, you make mistakes and get uncomfortable. And making mistakes and being uncomfortable is really, really bad. Right. So I had this whole chain of thoughts that come around from sitting in one seat. This is what I was able to pluck out of myself. So I said, okay, I gotta talk about this, right? Because that's just how it works, right? That's just how it works. But do we really know how it works? So that's what I was going to share with you guys. I'm going to do this little screen share here. Well, can you guys see this? So, okay. So this is how we determine our life. This is every single thing that we do. This is the basis of it. This is the entire model, and it's a good visual representation. So we take in events and experiences through our five senses, right? We're going to see things, we're going to hear things, we're going to feel things, we're going to smell things, we're going to taste things. And that's how we take things in. We also have another way that we take things in, and that's through self-talk. But when we do all of these things, when we see something, when we hear it, when we feel it, smell it, taste it, it comes into us and we delete, distort, and generalize that information that we just took in. And we do that by running what we took in through a series of filters. And that's all of this down here, right? So like time, let's say you hear your phone ringing, right? That comes into your awareness. You're going to react totally differently if it's 2:00 in the afternoon versus 2:00 in the morning. You have a totally different response based on time, based on location. If your phone rings and you're at home, you might pick it up, but if your phone rings and you're at church, right? So there's all of these filters that we run these experiences through: our memories, our beliefs, our values, our attitudes. And that's actually how we determine this internal representation of the event that we took in. Now, once we have an internal representation of the event, we pair that up with our state, which is our emotional state. And we pair that up with our physiology, with what's happening in our body. And that combination is what determines our behavior. And our behavior is what determines our results. So think about it. If you hear a dog barking and you turn around and you see a puppy, and you take this vision of this puppy coming at you and you delete and generalize and distort it through all of those filters, and you say, oh, I remember one time I saw a puppy, it was so adorable, I love puppies. You're going to have an internal representation that puppies are an okay thing. They're safe. It's totally fine. Now, if you're feeling good, let's say you're just in a happy, totally fine emotional state, and in your physiology, you have all things going that are good, right? You got all those feel good hormones pumping through you. You're totally fine. All kinds of, just no worries at all. You might create a behavior where you're like, oh my God, it's a puppy. I'm going to love this forever. And you're just like getting all the puppy kisses and everything because everything just feels really, really good, right? But if we have this internal representation that puppies are good and we're in a happy, pleasant, emotional state, but maybe going on in our body, we just don't feel well. Maybe we have a cold, or we're just tired, or, there's something going on inside of our body. We may not feel like we can, maybe you hit the gym too hard yesterday, right? And you can't squat down to pick up that puppy. So you're going to have a totally different behavior. oh my God, cute dog, sweet. I got to get home and lay down. I got to ice my thighs or whatever, right? So you have a totally different behavior based on your emotional state and your physiology when you take in an event. So that's kind of how it works. Does anybody have any questions about that model? No? Okay, cool. I'm going to stop sharing that so I can go back to seeing all of our faces. So I had developed this belief that after years of following around all of the adults that I looked up to and modeled, that when you're somewhere where you should be focused and paying attention, it's a really, really good idea to minimize all distractions. So sit in the front. A couple weeks ago, right? So minimizing distractions. This is a fun little memory. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at work, I was giving a massage. And like maybe, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago or so, I switched from a playlist that I had made on Amazon of like just whatever relaxing spa music to this random Spotify, totally different platform, totally different music, random. I don't know what's coming up, right? Like outside of my comfort zone, right? But you guys, I'm feeling good about change in these last year and a half. Like I'm embracing it. So let's get comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's make it uncomfortable. Put the Spotify playlist on, and I've been using it for a couple of weeks, right? It's called like deep sleep. And my clients were so relaxed. And it's a nice mix of just new things that I hadn't heard, but all just very basic spa, calming, relaxing music. I'm like, cool, I did this. This is all right. I can get down with this. So I have this client, first client of the day. We get through almost the whole massage. We got like 10 or 15 minutes left. And the music changes. It's a new song. You guys, I don't know what it was. It was the weirdest mix of this like deep chime with this digital video game sounding, like it was like bong, bong, and I was like, what? Oh my God, what's happening? And I panicked. What is this? This is not like so way outside of my comfort zone. And so I like composed myself as much as I could, right? Spent some more time on the area, finished up, pulled the blanket up, tucked them in, right? And I went down to the foot of the table and I timed it out so perfectly. Like so perfectly. The song had kind of slowed down. There was maybe another 2 minutes of the song, right? But it had slowed down. It had gotten very quiet. And I just reached over and boop, next, right on the touch screen. It started the song all over again. You guys, I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry because I couldn't do, like, I was stuck. Okay. So the song goes on. It's like, and you guys, I don't know if you know this. I know it because of the industry I'm in. A spa song, like a relaxation, those are like 7 minutes long, you guys. Those are long songs. They don't come in 3 minutes. Like, no, they're long. And so I let that play for like 5 more minutes. Bong. And the client finally, it's like, in the face cradle, like looking down. And she's like, what is this song? I love it. What? What? And then the client went on to tell me that deep chime sound reminded her of her son, who had passed away suddenly a couple years ago. She shared with me this memory, how he used to hold his toddler niece up, and she would just ring this chime, but she only rang the biggest chime, the deepest one, right? And she said that sound just kept, like, every time she heard it, it was just this reminder that he was right there. Yeah. I was like, wow, right? Like, thank you for sharing that with me. First of all, right? What can you even say at this point? So I just let it, like, I'm at the end of the massage. I just, we got 2 more minutes left. I just finish up and I just let the client just be in that beautiful, safe space, right? And I thought, like, in my mind, I'm panicked. And then I'm double panicked. And for the client, it was just a beautiful gift. That's it. It was something special for them. And so, we finished up the massage and I said, okay, take your time sitting up, got plenty of time, sit up nice and slow. I just, give my end of the massage speech. And I went to leave the room and the song started playing a third time. You guys. So I want to talk real quick about the lesson that I learned there, which is it's called behavioral flexibility. That's a really, really big part of my journey right now, you guys. I have to read this off of my notes because I wrote it so well that I didn't want these words to come out wrong. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. So I know that it's definitely a major part of my journey right now to stop being so resistant to change, to become comfortable with taking those new perspectives, and to start being consciously aware of my unconscious programs and patterns so that I can consciously learn. Sorry, I must consciously unlearn the unconsciously learned behaviors and perspectives that no longer support me. To stop being so resistant to change, to become comfortable with taking those new perspectives, and to start being consciously aware of my unconscious programs and patterns so that I can consciously unlearn the unconsciously learned behaviors and perspectives that no longer serve me. A change in perspective often leads to a change in behavior. And a change in behavior can change your life. Yeah. And so, like, when I talk about behavioral flexibility, that's what I mean. When that music switched the first time and that song, boom, like, I had a choice. Actually, I had endless choices, right? But just to name a few, I could have spoke up. I could have just said, hey, are you digging this music or should I change it? Right. I totally could have done that. B, I could have just hit the next button again, right? And if they notice, like, well, that was weird, why that song did, I don't know, technical malfunction, it's an internet device, who knows, right? C, I could have done nothing. Just let it play, who cares, right? I didn't make the playlist. It's not my music. Just thought nothing of it and just kept doing my job. And yet, yeah, you guys, doing nothing is a choice. D, I could have gone within, right? I could have tapped into my intuition and learned that there was probably a reason that the song was playing, right? I mean, I knew her son. I've known him. I've met him before. I could have picked up on that, right? If this was a multiple choice test, I mean, option E is either C or D. Both of those would have been acceptable. Do nothing, let it play, focus on your job. Or just realize that there's probably a reason. But I didn't do any of that. I chose option F. Panic, freak out, make sure that it affects your neurology and your concentration and your flow and your focus. Ultimately, it's going to affect your behavior. Make sure you do that. That's what I chose, you guys. I mean, focus more on the music than the massage. touch my device with massage hands. Like, that is not something I do, you guys. And yes, I definitely sterilized that device after the client left. Like, that is so outside of my behavioral realm. It's not something I do, but my perspective and my emotional state and my physiology and how I was feeling had me do something way out of my zone. Option F. What the F? Right? Like, what? Why would I do that? My flexibility was limited by my unconscious belief that distractions and discomfort will cause me to lose focus. The instant things got uncomfortable, my unconscious mind said, see, I told you so. Why'd you change the playlist? You should have just stayed with Amazon, where you know that every other song is George Winston and every fifth song is Enya, right? A change in songs meant a change in perspective. And a change in perspective means that there's new things to take in. And new things to take in mean distraction and discomfort. And distraction and discomfort are bad. Yeah. I was so absolutely conditioned by this belief that all of those other choices that I listed out to you guys were totally unavailable to me. I had one choice. I didn't even know that the rest of that existed. My idea of that song, my perception of it, of what it was, what it sounded like, what it felt like, my entire perception of that song was a narrow perspective, and it limited my behavioral flexibility, which ultimately would limit my growth and potential. So now that I'm consciously aware of this unconscious pattern, I can be more consciously aware of all of the choices that are available to me when I'm put in the same or similar situations, right? Bonus. Fast forward a few days. I'm at the office again. I got this deep sleep playlist going, right? And my first client of the day, she comes in, gets on the table, and we start talking pretty early in her session. And we just start talking about, just random things. And one of the topics that we talked about was, I was telling her the story, you guys may have heard this, about how I used to carry my negative emotions around like an umbrella, where they were just above me all the time. And I was always underneath them, and how for years and years and years and years, I wanted to be bigger than all of the things that I felt. I wanted to get out from underneath the heaviness of all of this negative emotion that lived above me. I mean, look at the unconscious structure of that thought. I want to be bigger. Yeah. And I'll never get out from underneath the heaviness. It's no wonder I weighed 350 pounds, right? Yeah. It's some pretty important code I was giving myself there, but that's a story for another day, right? So my client's like, oh my God, I love that. I love how you describe those negative emotions like an umbrella. And, that's really cool how you said that. And I mean, in a, I don't know, 4-minute span of time, we said the word umbrella probably 6 times. And wouldn't you know it, that Spotify playlist turned to all rain sounds. You guys, there was no music. There was no melody. It was just rain. Rain for deep slumber. Rain sounds for meditation. Rain sounds from the forest. For an hour and 45 minutes. Guys, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, nothing terribly significant came from the rain sounds, but the client did indicate that she felt relaxed. And I didn't have any panic or freak out moments, so I call that a win, right? So to kind of recap what we learned, we create our internal representation of an experience by taking it in through all of our five senses and having some self-talk about it. And then we filter it through all of those filters, like our memories and our opinions, our beliefs, our values and attitudes. And then we take that internal representation that we've created and we pair it up with our emotional state and the physiology in our bodies. And that's what determines our behavior. And we always have available to us an endless amount of choices. And we make choices both consciously and unconsciously all the time. All the time. If you want to challenge my behavioral flexibility, just send me a random Spotify playlist. We also learned that our devices are most definitely listening to us. And then the last and very most important thing that we learned today is if you want to change your life, you need to change your behavior. And the best way to change your behavior is to change your perspective. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for letting me share. I'll pass it back to Corey.
That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I like chills when you said that that song related to her. Like that's crazy. It's not crazy, but I mean, it is on so many levels. So thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions or any thoughts? I'll check the chat really quick. Just all saying thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Hearts. Yeah. We love you so much. We always love your perspective for sure, because it is a great reminder to be grounded, to be intentional, to look for those signs and to be open to those signs, because they are all around us always when we're willing to be open to seeing and hearing them. So thank you so much for preparing the call and sharing with us tonight. We appreciate you and love you. Thank you, girls, for being on tonight. I will get the recording up and enjoy the rest of your evening.